Today we're going to be looking at the CSWA sample exam for Solidworks. Specifically, we're going to be looking at part 2 of that. It's a modeling part where we'll be building models of objects in Solidworks and controlling global variables to determine mass of that object and then answering questions in the exam. So what I'm going to show you right now is the example of that question. So if we go here, and you can see here that we have a PDF version of this. When you're taking this exam, it will be online and it will not be in PDF form. You'll actually be taking a timed exam where you'll be answering these questions online through the exam proctor. So here's the part 2 for that. And you can see they've got some dimensions here, but you'll notice that some of these dimensions are actual global variables within SolidWorks. So they don't actually have a value to them right now. But if we scroll down to the question for this, you can see here that they give you a material, what the density of that material is, and then they give you values right here for A, B, and C. And what's important is you wanna actually put these in as equations, so global variables, not the values they give you there. Because if you go down to the next question, you can see that they're changing those values and then asking you a different question. So if you put them in as actual values, you'd have to go back into your drawing and change them in there. If you just put them into the equations in SolidWorks, we can go into the global values in equations, and we can just change those rapidly. So we're going to get started off with drawing the part and expanding it out. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the equations block in SolidWorks. I'm going to minimize this test so it's not in your way, but I'll keep the object in the upper right hand corner of my SolidWorks pane so that you can see the shape that we're drawing and what all the dimensions are. Alright, so we're going to create a new part here, and it's going to be the part that we have in the object here. So we're going to go up here and we're going to say new, we're going to say part. We'll say OK. Alright, and so the first thing we want to do is we want to go up to the tools and go down to equations. And in our equations, we want to add in some global variables. So our global variables are going to be they're going to be the A, B, C that you see on the part drawing, and we're going to put in the dimensions that they give us for the question. So A is going to be equal to 81, B is 57, and C is 43. So on our global variables here, we click A, tab over, we have 81, tab through, B, tab over, 57, and C, tab over, is 43. And then we tab out of there, and we say OK. All right, so now those global variables are set. And what we want to do is we want to look at our object here, and we can see that the hole in the center here has got it's a nice center point to what our object will be. So we'll center that around the origin on the center point of the hole, and you can see that it's got some reference dimensions to it that we can start off with. So let's go to our front plane here, and we'll go normal to that, and we'll start our sketch. All right, from our sketch, we're going to go to our circle tool, click on the origin, run off of there, push escape, smart dimensions, and we'll make this 14. All right, so there is our first part of this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create some reference geometry. So we're going to create a box that is going to bound this entire object. And by using that box as our bounding for this object, we can give it the values, the unit values for A and B. And so when that whole box changes size, it should change everything else that's in relationship to that box. So we're going to draw just a rectangle now, and we're going to draw it around this origin. So, and you can see the object itself runs a little bit, to this side of the circle and below. So we can go here and we can say okay. Go to our smart geometry. We'll tell this line that this is equal to B. And so you want to put your quotation marks, B, say enter. And then we will go, we'll say okay. And then we'll click on this line, pull up. We'll say this is equal to A. All right. Now you can see it shifted, right, off of our circle a little bit. So if we push escape now, and one thing I haven't done yet is we need to change this to our construction geometry. So if we click inside this box here, it highlights everything and selects all those lines. And over here on this side, we can say for construction. So we'll click that, and you see it becomes dotted lines and becomes a construction box at that point in time. Now, if we push escape, we can then grab this, and since this is all linked together and it has dimensions to it already, we can drag it up a little bit to where it needs to be, roughly. And we can drag it over to where it needs to be, roughly. All right, so that gives us a good starting point for our reference geometry. And now what we'll do is we'll add in we'll start adding in a few more dimensions for this, and then we will start drawing our shape. Okay, so some of the first dimensions we're going to do is we're going to reference this box so it knows where it's at in relationship to the origin here. So we know that from the center point here to this line, that value is going to be 14. Okay, and we also know, doing a little quick math, we can see on the shape that we have 14 from the center point down to the first bottom horizontal, and then from there we've got 19 from that bottom horizontal down to the very bottom of the object. So if we add up our 19 and our 14, we get 33. So we know from the center point here down to this line here is going to be 33. All right, so now all of that went black, right? So now we know that that's fully defined. So with that fully defined, now we can start drawing our object. And so this will make it so our object draws a little bit easier. So to start off with, we're going to go to our line tool, just our straight line tool. We're going to come over here and we're going to look at the object a little bit, and we're going to start drawing. Now, one thing you want to make sure that you avoid doing while you're doing this drawing is Solidworks snaps you to objects so that it's so that you get these mates and relations and joins that are handy sometimes, and sometimes that's super useful. Sometimes though, if I was to start my object at the center point of this line and go up, it's going to create a join there for a coincidence for the start point of that line to the center point of this line. And so then that coincidence is going to affect how things move around. And so with this, we kind of wanted to avoid that happening. So we're going to start off of that line a little bit. We're going to go here, and then we're going to go at roughly 45-degree angle, little short straight over. Now see, you can see some things here it's already doing. And it's already saying, hey, I just by drawing something accidentally created a 45-degree angle. And you can see that with the yellow lines. Right now we're going to say that's okay because it's supposed to be a 45, but you just need to be careful when you're doing that. There, we're going to do a little shallow angle down, go away from that point, come back to it, and now we're drawing an arc that has tangency to that first line we drew, right? We have our straight line across here, and we're going to draw our angle down. Once again, try to avoid doing things where it's showing you some snapping to stuff. And so, because we might have to go back in and delete some of those relationships right now. Same thing here, it'd be tempting to draw this down to right there because that looks about right, but we want to go a little bit below that. And we're going to come down to here, and we're going to come across a little bit. Then we're going to push escape because our next line that has to come up is an arc. And if we try to do the arc tool, we can do an angle tool, and we try to do the arc tool is automatically going to try to create a tangent line off of this line, and we don't want it to be tangent to this line. If you look there, you can see that there's definitely not a tangency between this arc and this flat plane here. So to draw that line, we're going to come back over to this side. We're going to do our line tool. I'm going to drop down roughly 45. We're going to run across horizontal for a little ways. Going to go away, come back, draw in a curve. This one is fine that it's tangent to there. And then we're going to go away and we're going to come back and we're going to draw in another tangent curve. And let's push escape here, because the problem with this is you can see our center point is over to the left way far down, right? We want our center point to be here. And so currently where our lines are at, that's not going to work. So we're going to need to push escape. We're going to grab this point here, drag it back a little bit, and grab this point here and drag it back a little bit. And that will allow us, when we draw our next line, to create this arc with the center point here. So we'll go to our line tool, click on this point, come back to it, and now draw down and hit that point. Okay. So no, we're not quite perfect, right? It's close. We've got to make some adjustments though. And if we make adjustments right now, it actually will make, when we start adding dimensions into the object, it will make it go a little bit quicker. Because sometimes if your first rough drawing is off by too much, when you go in and you add in your dimensions, it starts to really, it will shift your lines around a lot and make everything really wonky. So let's go in and do some quick adjustments here. So this point here, we can raise it up a little bit to say maybe there. Here, we'll drag this back over a little bit, drag this one over a little bit. And you can see there, right? Like it's pulling things. So we're going to pull this point over to here and this one over here a little bit. And drop that down a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty close there. We'll make this shorter. We'll make this a little bit further that way. And right there, we're close. Close enough that we can start defining some of our dimensions here. Okay, so one of the first ones that we already have defined is, and you can see that it's already snapped black because it's sitting on this line. So any of the lines that are sitting on our construction lines already have a black shade to them because they have at least one of their relationships is known. They're coincidence with this line. So they don't know where they start and stop, but they know they're on this line. So that's good. That's going to drive part of what our drawing looks like. So then we go and we can go over here and we can say, all right, from this point here to, oh, excuse me, we got to get to our smart dimensions. From this point here to this point, this line up here, our value is 7. So we say okay. We also know that from this horizontal or this vertical here and this angle here, we know that that angle is 45. So we can click on this line and click on this vertical and we can say 45. And we know that from this point here to this line, our length is 14. So that shifts that over a little bit. All right. We know that this angle is 10 degrees off of this horizontal, but without putting a reference line in here, we know that this is 180. It'd be 180 here. So if we know that we're 10 degrees off of that, we can say that our angle here to here is 170. So if we click on this line and click on this line, we can go down here and we can say 170. And you can see we were pretty close anyway. And that, like I said, that's going to make stuff so that it draws a little bit smoother as we go. We know that our radius here is 19. And we know that our distance from this point here to our construction line is 29. All right, so we're starting to get there, right? It's starting to look correct. And we know that our angle on this line to our vertical is 45. So we can click here, click vertical. We can say that's 45. Okay. We know that from this point to vertical is 5. And we know that from this point to vertical is 24. Okay. And we know that from this point to our vertical here is 29. And let's push escape and adjust a few things here. Let's slide this over a little bit. And it looks like we need to drop this down a little bit. So we can get this angle right. This is going to take a little bit of adjusting. Okay. So the next thing we can see is we can see that this center point is coincident with this line. So we can push escape, we'll go here, we'll click on this point, push control, click on this line, and we want to say coincident. So that's going to scooch us over, but it's fine. And then we can go here and we can look at a few things here. We know, let's go back over to this edge and start defining from this side over. That will help with some of this. So we know that this angle off of vertical is 45, so we'll push OK on that, go to Smart Dimensions, here to that vertical line is 45, and our distance vertically from this point down to this line is not defined. My bad, excuse me. Our distance, our vertical distance from this point down to this line is 7. So that's going to shrink things up a bit. And then from this point down to this point is 14. Oh, we already have that value in that one there. So let's 14. Okay. So that pulls out all up, makes it look a little bit closer to reality. Things are looking okay. We need to define this radius here and then this radius here. So this radius here is 5. And this radius here is 29. Okay. And then we have just a few more things that we need to make sure that we've got in, because we currently aren't fully defined. So let's see where things are at that aren't being defined. Here we go. This distance down to here needs to be 19. That shifts that around. So now basically all we're looking at is something up here is missing a definition to it. So we've got our angle here. We know that those are this line, escape, is tangent to that line. So we've got our tangent seeds drawn in here. Let's see, what are we missing? 14, 7, angle's 45. Angle here is 170. $29.45. All right, and the last dimension, the one that I was missing here, is we need the distance from this line down to this line. So we go Smart Dimensions, click on this line, click on this line here, pull across, and that is 32. There we go. Now we're fully defined. Here's our total object, so our total shape here. So there's a lot going on this, and you can see that on the actual drawing itself. There's a lot going on in the drawing as far as the dimensions go. But if you go about it in a logical order around, and you start off in a logical place, you use your construction drawings like you should, it's not horrible as you go. Okay, so that's our drawing, right? So our drawing's done there. So now we can say okay, and we can take our drawing, we can go to Feature, and we can extrude it boss base, and let's extrude it. So that's our front plane. Let's extrude it backwards from the plane. So let's change our direction, and the value that we're going to extrude it is going to be C, right? So C was our final global variable, and there we go. And so now we say okay, and now we've got this object here. And so this is the object that we had. Now a good thing to do would be to look around at the object, make sure it looks like, you know, like the drawing. Make sure there's nothing that's too terribly goofy about it. And then we're going to go up here, and we're going to click on this object and select it. And we're going to go to our materials. And we're going to go edit material. And what we want to do is in the document on the question, it said that it was 1020 steel, right? And that it had a density of 0.0097 grams per millimeters cubed. So let's find our 1020 steel. We're under steel here. We have 1020, we have cold rolled, and we have this one. So let's click on this one. And what we want to do is we want to go down to our mass density. And so our mass density here, this is in kilograms per meter cubed. And so we could do the math on this if we were changing it to grams to millimeters cubed. But because it's metric and we know that these values are base 10 values, we can see that this one is 79, and we're looking for 0.0079. So the chances are good that this one's probably right. But to check that, let's look at our other 1020. Our other 1020, mass density is 7870. So we're going to go with the just straight 1020 up here because that gives us our correct mass density. So we say apply, and we say close. All right, so now we've got our piece made out of steel. So what we want to do now is we want to look at our variables for this piece. And so to do that, okay, so then to do that, we're going to go up here and we're going to click on the Evaluate tab, right? And then we're going to go up to Section Properties. No. So to do that, we want to select our object here, right? And we want to go up and we want to go to our Evaluate tab. And under Evaluate tab, we can click on this button here that's called Mass Properties. And that's going to open up this screen here. And it's kind of small. Hopefully you guys can see this on your screen here. But up at the top, you get your density values, and then you get a mass value. And our mass value is 939.54 grams. And when you look through the PDF, you'll see that the option D is 939.54 grams. So that would be what you would select on the test. And that's how this basically works. And so then as you go through the rest of the exam, you're going to have, with this object, we're going to have a few more questions that are involving this. Some of them are simple, where we're just changing some of the global variables. And the global variables will change the shape of this object, and it will change what its mass is, and you answer it. And then some of them are a little bit more complicated in doing some actual adjustments to the objects and some more cutouts. So that will be part 2 of this video. This is just part 1, building the basic general object. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll talk to you soon.